Hey, Ryan. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I figured out the problem.
See ya.
I know how to spell
Oh goodness, I always got to figure out where the.
I'll mute me so you can talk.
Okay. Well, they'll be able to hear you too.
I don't want to talk.
bag. Okay, bag.
I just have to.
Bag completed. Bag is completed.
Glory.
Any Richard your prize?
No, this whole thing, I may pull this forward a little bit.
Okay.
Necessarily. Feedback.
Sorry guys, that feedback's for me. I don't know what's going on.
Turn it so you're in the camera. Well, that's good.
Last week, that was me.
Kind of sounded like a 60s band sound check.
Okay, I think I'm getting somewhere.
Afterwards.
Let me make.
I want to talk about from last week. Wait, did you say corn dog? Yeah.
Now we can mute in and out of this thing too.
How do you do that?
You can go down there, and if we want to, we can say stop video. We can do that, and then you can see us there.
Okay.
And the same way with audio. We go down there and do that. You can mute it right here like this, or you can mute it. There's a button on top of that mic too.
Okay. So we're waiting on.
Okay, everybody's texting me saying, "Why isn't Bible study on YouTube?" And it is, but because I've got 6. Yeah.
Always getting text in between.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, guys. That's fine. Yeah. Yeah. This is the Zoom thing is great, but getting everything squared away always takes forever.
Can you let Joyce in?
Yep. Just got her on.
Okay.
I was having to deal with, it's still saying that the chat is disabled. This is silly.
I got set. Holly,
Okay.
I got 7 done by myself. Good job. You think you can do the rest by yourself? Okay, I'm doing this one's hand.
Okay. Why does it keep doing that? Stream settings.
Okay.
Live stream settings. Live chat. Enable live chat.
All right, bud, you're gonna need your cables to pull off.
Okay. Okay, so here's my problem sometimes is every time that I put this live on YouTube, it always automatically makes it is this video made for children? And if it's made for children, it doesn't it doesn't allow live chat. So I have to go in there and I have to try to change the settings. And now it's not giving me that option to change the settings. So it doesn't look like people on YouTube are going to get to comment. I can't spend forever on this. All right, Levi, you're going to have to be quiet, okay? Because we're going to have to start. So I apologize to everybody if I can't get live chat going. Try this again.
I like it.
It's disabled. I did not disable the chat. What's going on? Details, come on.
This kind of looks like the Brady Bunch.
I know it.
Yeah, Terry, you're on top of Gayla. That's funny.
Okay, I'm sorry this isn't
And this
doing
is
like I
cute.
want.
Yeah, they have to turn their video on. See what that's with this setting here.
Uh-huh.
If we want-
Marcia.
That this makes it disappear like that. See,
How does it?
you
Click
stop,
on it?
Stop it. You click on that, and then we go
Oh wait, okay.
like that. Yeah,
Okay.
and same with the mute.
How did Gayla change places?
Every
I don't
time
know.
somebody's
Everybody's
added
moving around here.
You're over here.
How'd you guys do that?
that? That's funny. You moved your icon, Gayla.
Okay, I think I got the live chat working finally. So that's good. There's so many different things. It's crazy. All right. Everybody can hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Terry's trying to play tricks on me as usual. All right. Well, again, I know it's 10 after, so we'll go ahead and get started, but it's good to see everybody and good to see everyone. I still got to admit, Joyce. Okay. I thought I had done that, but anyways, so getting her in here. I'll go ahead and with announcements. Good to see everybody that is on YouTube. I'm sure that we'll get some more, but I want to go ahead with announcements. Prayer list. We want to continue to remember Mark Hildenbrand, who's battling AFib, and he's had some complications this week. Was in the hospital, right, Dave?
Yeah, he's got to keep him. He's not doing so well. His heart is only at 20%.
Okay.
And they think what happened is last November, he had some type of virus that just took him out pretty much.
Attack this heart.
It attacked his heart, yeah. And so he went in for an appointment on, this is Thursday, on Monday. And, or was it last Monday? I think it was last Monday.
This past weekend.
And they kept him. You know, they said, "You're not going home, buddy. You're not in good shape." And so he stayed there for several days, and then he had an appointment again yesterday, and they let him go home. So he was kind of concerned about that. So it's kind of concerning.
Okay.
We can do a screenshot too.
So we'll just need to continue to remember him for sure. Also, we want to continue to remember Susan Edminster and Debbie Robbins and the loss of their mother. Okay, and then obviously everyone from church that's connected with them as well. So still sad to hear that news. We want to remember Pat Hands. Jim and Pat came by today, and Pat had to go to the ER yesterday and spent most of the day there yesterday. And they don't know everything that's going on with her, but they they're thinking that her vertigo is possibly back. She is experiencing some dizziness and stuff like that. So I want to remember her. Also continue to remember Mike Stafford. He is improving, but he did have a slight fracture in his back. And then Warner Fleck has an appointment at Riley in Indianapolis on May the 15th. That'll be for an echocardiogram. And then they'll also have another consultation with a doctor up there for possible future surgeries. So I want to continue to remember him. This announcement is for Sunday. And so we're trying to figure out the best way to do this, because I had a lot of people that were asking me, okay, so we're having people at the building, but you can only have 25. So who can come? All right. And how do we organize this? So basically what we did this past Sunday was anybody who was leading in the worship service and their families could come. And that brought about 10 or so people to the building. So we were under that cap. We kind of want to keep the same format. However, if you have a desire to come to the building and you meet the criteria, meaning that you are not sick, you don't have any health risk or anything of that nature, and you let me know ahead of time, then I can kind of tally a number. Okay. Just the point is that we really can't go over that 25. We can get in some trouble if that is found out. That's not the main reason. We want to keep everybody healthy and we want to follow the guidelines. We, as a reputation, we want to have a good reputation in our community and just make sure that we do that. All of our services as normal are going to continue to be online for forever, because we were doing it before all of this happened. Okay. So everything will be broadcast. And so everyone will have access to our worship services. Now, week by week, there might be some aspects of the in-person services that will change, and we will keep you all updated on that as best as possible. Because as the weeks progress, they'll allow more and more people to come. We might even make some modifications to how we include everybody and allow everybody to come. So just be patient with us on that. Yes, continue to ask questions about it, but we're not going to leave you hanging on the information. Okay. On that note, as far as Bible classes are concerned, as well as our evening services are concerned, that is going to continue as it has been. And the elders, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but that's been my understanding per our conversations or text the last couple of days, that for the foreseeable future, probably through the month of June, we're going to kind of continue this format and have our in-person meeting limited to Sunday mornings for a while. Okay. So, again, if that changes, a mass email will be sent out, probably calling posts and all that as well. So if there's any major changes like that, we will do our best to make sure that everybody knows as soon as possible. Okay. So again, if you have questions about that, just let me know. Also, continue to check your emails. I think most everybody's on the emails now. Almost every household in our congregation is. And I try to keep that updated as best as possible. That also has more resources for today as far as kids' Bible classes and stuff. I've already done it with my kids and it worked out pretty well, especially with the materials that we have coming with it. All right, World Bible School. Many of you have been notified if you have lessons in your folders. You can pick them up or drop them off if you've graded them at the building. But as we've said before, try not to make any special trips with that. Okay. And remember to wear a mask and wear gloves in the building. Thank you to everybody that came on Sunday and adhered to that. We didn't have any issues and it went smoothly. I know we had some foggy glasses, but I know that kind of goes with the territory, wearing masks, and thank you for carrying that burden. Okay. I do appreciate that. If you are coming to the building for any reason through the rest of this week to pick up supplies, remember to wear a mask. There are extras at the building if you don't have any. Also, remember to sanitize your hands before touching the communion kits. Use the non-latex gloves that are available to get communion kits out of those boxes. I will be actually ordering. We're just now opening up a brand new box of those, and I am about to order another box, okay, to help kind of get us through the next foreseeable phase or future. Okay, so again, thank you all for your patience. I know it hasn't been easy on you all, and you can imagine it hasn't been easy on the minister either. You know, that's part of my job, is to be able to see people, and haven't been able to do that like I would like to. And, you know, just making sure we have what we need in order to thrive as a congregation in our current situation. Doing the best that I can, but if you guys have some suggestions on some other things that we need, just let me know that. Okay. With that being said, I am going to go ahead and begin with our classes, because I know we have a lot to get through. And we've been talking about 1 Corinthians chapter 7, and I've been wanting to get through that as quick as I can, but there has been some great information surrounding that that subject matter. And I don't want to speed through it, especially if this stuff is so important. So that's why we're spending so much time on it. But we're kind of on the last leg. And we are in 1 Corinthians 7 and looking at verses 25 through 35. This is the instructions that have been given concerning virgins or betrothed. Okay, last week we spent the entire time talking about abiding in the cultural calling that you were called in, and we were talking about what that actually means, and we talked about what that doesn't mean. Okay, so both of those are important to understand. What does this mean and what does it not mean? Okay, so we had a big discussion even about slavery and about slavery compared to biblical principles. They were allowed to have or keep slaves back then. I think what we really concluded was that Paul wanted to strongly encourage, without commanding, that if people own slaves, to remember that they are free in the gospel, and that maybe they ought to be, set free, even if it's an indentured servant situation. So we looked at the book of Philemon that touched on that just a little bit. But I want us to go to verses 25 through 35, okay, and see what it says here. So if somebody would like to read that is in our Zoom chat, that would be great. And don't forget that you can raise your hand. There should be a button where you can raise your hand, and I should see that on your screen. Okay, so I got a hand raised from Gayla to read that passage, and a thumbs up. All right. All right, and you're still muted, Gayla. So.
Yeah, sorry, I was just trying to show off my hands. I wasn't meaning to, but I will read it.
Okay, that sounds okay.
25 through 27?
Actually, we're doing 25 through 35.
35.
Mm-hmm.
Now about virgins, I have no command from the Lord, but I give a judgment as one who by the Lord's mercy is trustworthy. Because of the present crisis, I think that it is good for a man to remain as he is. Are you pledged to a woman? Do not seek to be released. Are you free from such a commitment? Do not look for a wife. But if you do marry, you have not sinned. And if a virgin marries, she has not sinned. But those who marry will face many troubles in this life. And I want to spare you this. What I mean, brothers and sisters, is that the time is short. From now on, those who have wives should live as if they do not. Those who mourn as if they did not. Those who are happy as if they were not. Those who buy something as if it were not theirs to keep. Those who use the things of the world as if not engrossed in them. For this world in its present form is passing away. I would like you to be free from concern. An unmarried man is concerned about the Lord's affairs. how he can please the Lord. But a married man is concerned about the affairs of this world, how he can please his wife, and his interests are divided. An unmarried woman or virgin is concerned about the Lord's affairs. Her aim is to be devoted to the Lord in both body and spirit. But a married woman is concerned about the affairs of this world, how she can please her husband. I am saying this for your own good, not to restrict you, but that you may live in a right way in undivided devotion to the Lord.
Hey, thank you very much. I know that there's quite a bit to unpack there, but the good thing about this part of the passage is it is pretty self-explanatory in many senses. But first of all, let's kind of go back to, throughout this chapter, seems like Paul kind of goes back and forth, doesn't he, on making sure that the readers know this is a command from the Lord. This is my opinion, okay, or this is my advice, concerning things. So where are we at with this particular passage? Is this Paul's judgment, or is this the Lord's judgment? And don't forget to unmute if you want to make a comment. You can raise your hand to make a comment too if you want, I guess. Okay. All right. Dave?
Is there an electronic way to raise your hand?
Yeah, there's supposed to be a button over in the chat, I think.
Or in the chat?
Yeah.
Go down the bottom where you see
Yeah.
more.
Yeah. Oh,
It's
is
right
it
next
there?
to,
Oh, I see the reactions. Is that it?
yes, reactions. Check on.
Oh, okay, I got it. Okay, all right, okay,
Well,
okay,
See, I don't have that as the moderator, so I don't get to do that. Okay.
okay.
So
Just have
Dave,
to
were
be-
you raising your hand? Because if you didn't, I saw Joyce do it. Okay.
It appears to me that this is more advice coming from Paul
Mhm.
than it is divine.
Yeah. Okay. So whenever he says, this I say, not the Lord, but I, and then he switches that around some too, whenever he wants to go the other way. Okay. Now this is the Lord's command. All right. So where we're at now is where Paul is giving some advice with the current situations that are happening. So he's giving his opinion here, and he makes us aware of that in verses 25 and 26. Now we get to that point. Now we referred to this whenever we were talking earlier in the chapter about some of the other issues that Paul was addressing. He was just talking about, should you get married or not? And then he talked about, because of earthly passions, then if you're burning in that passion, then you probably need to get married. But to the unmarried, I say, stay even as I am. And then we jumped up to these passages in 25 and 26, where Paul makes that reference to in the present distress. Okay. Now, what I want us to think about is, what could that mean? We're not given an exact answer here, but I think obviously with other passages, we're given some clues as to what that could mean. And so what could that mean strongly? Okay, Joyce is raising her hand.
Okay, I'm trying to be polite here. We had talked about earlier in our study here that it might be with what was going on with the Christians at that time.
Uh-huh.
The persecution they were under, the fear that their family would pay the price for them being Christians.
Okay, so yeah, fear for the family because of the
Valid.
persecutions. Okay,
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, any other thoughts or ideas there? I'm not saying Joyce is wrong. I'm just saying, okay. Hib?
For that word distress, another word for that is necessity.
Uh-huh.
So that kind of can't cast another light on it too. There is a persecution coming, but however you look at that word necessity.
Yeah, and further on down in what Gayla read, it talks about the things that we concentrate on, right? that when you're unmarried, you have the ability to give your full attention to the Lord. When you are married, you have to give a fair amount of attention to the family, right? To the husband or to the wife. And so, that changes the dynamic. It changes the situation just a little bit. Got a couple of passages that I do want to jump to. Okay. And this is just, like I said, this is saying what it could represent. Okay. It could refer, as Joyce said, to a period of intense persecution. And I want to go to chapter 4, verses 9 through 13, just to kind of, take a look at that situation. Okay. All right. Again, that is chapter 4, verses 9 through 13. And I'll take a reader on that too, if somebody would like to. Okay. All right. Angie?
For it seems to me that God has put us apostles on display at the end of the procession, like men condemned to die in the arena. We have been made a spectacle to the whole universe, to angels as well as to men. We are fools for Christ, but you are so wise in Christ. We are weak, but you are strong. You are honored, we are dishonored. To this very hour, we go hungry and thirsty. We are in rags. We are brutally treated. We are homeless. We work hard with our own hands. When we are cursed, we bless. When we are persecuted, we endure. When we are slandered, we answer kindly. Up to this moment, we have become the scum of the earth, the refuse of the world.
Okay, so here, the clue is Paul addressing what the Corinthians are going through per se here? Or is he addressing what the apostles and the missionaries have gone through?
Apostles.
Okay, yeah, apostles or missionaries, okay? Those who have gone on these missionary journeys, those who have traveled and have taught the gospel to others. That's who he's referring to here. But what this passage is kind of cluing us into, is there a persecution happening for the sake of the gospel? Yeah, people are being persecuted for the sake of the gospel. The going forth from Jerusalem, has happened. Okay, that's taken place. People have the persecution had started there, and people had dispersed, and really that started the great aspect of mission work. That's when it really took off. So that kind of stuff was happening, and obviously, Paul's even making reference to being, like men who are sentenced to death. Okay. He had already seen it. Obviously, Paul had already done it, or he had already taken part in Stephen's martyr. Okay. And then you had men like James that we're told about in the book of Acts that had happened to. But if you think about all of the things that Paul had experienced throughout his mission work, I mean, Paul reminds me of a cat just a little bit, because it seems like he's got 9 lives. As many things as Paul has escaped from, as many near-death experiences as Paul has had, I mean, he's been through it for the sake of the gospel. And he would understand completely how much easier it is for him to get right back up again and continue in his work being a single man. Okay. He's got nobody else really that's worried about what happens to him, to the level of having a spouse that would be worried about it. And he's got no one else to worry about in that way. Okay. Meaning that every decision that he makes directly affects somebody else. Okay. So that's just to give us a clue of, hey, this kind of stuff is going on and it is happening. Okay. So I do lean in that direction. It doesn't mean that you have to lean in that direction though. Okay. I think this is one of those things that we can kind of, have an opinion on. But another place that I want to look is chapter 15 and verse 32 of 1 Corinthians. Okay. So again, we're in the same book. So trying to keep it in the context of his letter to the Corinthians, his first letter here. All right. 1 Corinthians 15:32. All right. Somebody want to take that one? You can raise a virtual hand or a real one. Okay, I see Terry's hand up. All right.
If from a human point of view, I fought with wild beasts at Ephesus, what did it benefit me? If the dead are not raised, let us eat and drink, for tomorrow we will die. Do not be deceived. Bad company corrupts good morals.
Okay. So so he's talking about, humanly speaking, fighting with beasts at Ephesus. Okay. Now, obviously, he's trying to somewhat reprimand the people. The context of chapter 15 is where, he's talking about people wanting to be baptized for the dead, and so he's dealing with some other doctrinal issues there and stuff. But he makes a reference to when he was in Ephesus. Okay, making that reference to being in Ephesus, and he's talking about, what do I gain, humanly speaking, if I fought with beasts at Ephesus? Okay. Ephesus was one of those places where he was not well received by everybody. Okay. And one of those places that he had to escape from. Okay. To escape certain death there. Okay. So that's basically what's happening there. All right. Any other questions or comments on that? Okay. And then the last part that we looked at in chapter 7 was where Paul was encouraging the unmarried to serve the Lord without distraction, right? Okay. So if you're single, serve the Lord without having that other burden or distraction upon you. Okay. And seek to do that. All right. Again, that one says, I say this for your own benefit, not to lay any restraint upon you, but to promote good order and to secure your undivided devotion. Okay. Undivided attention or devotion to the Lord. All right. And so that's important. And to those of you that are on here or listening, maybe you're watching on YouTube or maybe you're watching later. This to me is a paramount passage in thinking about your value as a single individual in Christianity. Oftentimes I think that single people feel overlooked, and they have a hard time figuring out where do they fit in and what role can they play, because I don't have a family. I don't have children. And so, the young families that get together and their children play, I feel out of place for that. And so oftentimes those who are in a single state somewhat drift away because they have a hard time figuring out where they fit in. Okay. And my advice there, along with Paul, is take every advantage that you can to fulfill and plug in wherever you can. Take that advantage to learn and grow. Okay. Use that time to study. By the way, I do, and I'm perfectly capable with studying with people who are single and people who are married. Okay. It's the same gospel for everybody. Okay. You as an individual who is single has the opportunity to reach people that married people cannot. Okay. And so keep that in mind, that we all have a different target of people that we can reach based on the circumstances that we find ourselves in. Okay. And so we are all valuable. We're all valuable in that way. And I want us to understand that. Okay. All right. Any other comments there before I move on to the next point?
Ryan, I think it's interesting there in verse 26, it says here that because of the present crisis, I think that it's good for you to remain as you are. It's kind of ironic. I think, we're going through this coronavirus crisis.
Mhm.
And I just wonder how people who are contemplating getting married or who are engaged, how they're looking at this. Would this not make it very difficult to live or to be married or to get married in a situation like we're going through?
Mhm.
I mean, the job situation, the uncertainty of the economy, your health. I mean, this just, it doesn't apply spiritually necessarily, but I just think it's interesting that people in every aspect of life are being affected by the current conditions, and how it would affect someone who is newly married or contemplating getting married, whether or not you would put that in the balance and weigh whether or not it's the right thing to do right now.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, I can attest to the fact that, it's causing a lot of, it's causing a lot of disappointment and hurt to a lot of couples because, they had, especially brides, because they had all these plans and stuff. But it's kind of been interesting. I actually did a wedding in March of a couple that was supposed to be married in April. Okay. And it was a couple down in Kentucky that I basically watched them grow up, not together per se, but, they were disappointed. There were some couples, that other couples I knew, that were so disappointed that their original wedding plans got cut short. But then you kind of saw them, make the best of what they could. Okay. But you're right. On the other hand there, that, maybe it's a time to just sit back and say, hey, you know what? This is something we can wait on this, and we'll get through this. And I think that's important. I think in a lot of aspects, not just in the single versus married aspect, this has caused a lot of us to kind of sit back and rethink things, right? That every time we think that we're living in normality, then something happens. Okay. It's just like, my kids will never know what it was like. I mean, I grew up being able to go to the airport and actually go into the terminal and watch planes take off and land and not even have a plane ticket. You could see somebody off at the gate, right? You can't do that anymore. And that's because of 9/11. All right. Ever since then, all of that changed. Okay. And so it's a different world even from before then. So we always have these things that kind of remind us, this is not a perfect world. It shouldn't be a place that you want to stay for forever. And so honestly, I think we can use this time as an opportunity to say, this world is not our home. We're passing through it. It's not perfect. Let me tell you about Jesus and how he can give you something better for eternity. And I do see your hand, Kib.
All right. I think when it comes down to these kind of decisions, it depends on the person. I think that's why Paul is coming out and saying, "Hey, this is my opinion, my ideas, my judgment on this, but you're going to have to figure it out." I know when it comes down to getting married, and some couples, the ceremony or the wing ding is the most important thing. It seems like it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking at a life partner and you need somebody for succor and to lean on, you know, you might decide to go ahead and get married right away just to support each other,
Mhm.
okay, through these tough times. Where with other couples, it might be best to wait, you know, so there is no black and white, you know, a lot of times.
Yeah, yeah, yep, that's very true. Very, very true. All right, well, let's go on to verses 36 through 38. Now, this is kind of an interesting one, you know, and it's very highly cognizant of the culture at the time. Okay, but somebody wants to read those 3 verses for us. One check. Okay, no comments on YouTube at the moment, so. All right, Dave. Don't forget to unmute yourself.
I clicked too fast. Is that better?
That's better.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. If anyone thinks he is acting improperly toward the virgin he is engaged to, and if she is getting along in years and he feels he ought to marry, he should do as he wants. He is not sinning. They should get married. But the man who has settled the matter in his own mind, who is under no compulsion, but has control over his own will, and who has made up his mind not to marry the virgin, this man also does the right thing. So then he who marries a virgin does right, but he who does not marry her does even better.
Okay. The wording here, you know, is very interesting. Okay. But it mainly what we're looking at here is fathers, you know, fathers concerning their virgin daughters. Okay. And in some cases, obviously, they're betrothed or engaged daughters. Okay. Think about the culture back then. You know, how does it usually work today when a couple gets engaged? How does it usually work today with the interaction with the parents? Like when it comes to that, who makes the first move? Does a father today usually say to his daughter, I like that young man there. I'm going to talk to his parents and you two are going to get married. Is that how it works? No, it's
Now
not.
we tried that. It don't work.
Sometimes in India, I think it still does.
That is the norm in India, as a matter of fact. Yes. The parents basically get together and say, you know, I think my child would be a good match for your child. And then they kind of do their trading of different items and stuff like that. And they make it a match. And so it's a decision that is between the parents. Now they obviously talk to the kids and say, hey, is this a person that you would be happy with? Okay, so it does go through all that, but the primary thing there is that, do the parents get along, and do the parents have an agreement with this? Okay, and so there could have been some cases at the time here in Corinth where, you know, in that particular culture, before all of this stuff started, there was an agreement already. Okay, there was an agreement for this to happen, for this marriage to happen, but now the dad's having second thoughts. Well, you know, after what's being said here, and after Paul saying this, maybe we shouldn't do this. And then it also, you know, my understanding here too is that, you know, someone who marries someone that they're engaged to, maybe they're, or maybe a man that is engaged to a virgin, you know, maybe he's starting to have second thoughts. Maybe we shouldn't do this. I don't know. And is Paul saying don't go through with it here, call it off, or is he saying the otherwise?
Well, just a comment here. in verse 20, in verse 38, he just says, so then he who marries a virgin does right, but he who does not marry her does even better. Now, I think that took me kind of curious here on, of course, Paul's a single guy. Maybe he's just more comfortable in that state, and that's how he thinks it's better. But he really wouldn't know being on the couple side of things either. So I don't know. I'm just commenting.
I know in King James, it reads a little different. It's because it sounds more like the father. It's not marrying him. It says, he that gives her in marriage does well, but he that gives her not in marriage does better. In other words, it might be a father preventing her from marrying. It's out of his own wisdom. That's the way King James reads.
Oh, I think that's good. Yeah, some of these more, there's my dog again. Levi, can you shut that door? Arch, quit. Okay. All right. So, boy, he really shut it too.
Hey, I'd like to comment on what Dennis just said. I do have a footnote here, and it does tie into what you're saying with King James.
Okay.
It says in verse.
Yeah, I think the King James is a better translation there.
It says here, if anyone thinks he is not treating his daughter properly, or if she is getting along in years, and he feels she ought to marry, he should do as he wants. It goes on, but it reinforces what you're saying, Dennis.
Okay. Good deal. All right. And so that comment too would be important, about if she's getting along in years, what would be in that culture in that time, what would be the problem then?
Babies.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Jeannie says babies, reproduction for one, but oftentimes the older that an individual got, the less desired they were to by the other sex in order to be married. So, he's like, if you feel like your daughter needs to be married now because of their age and obviously you feel that way because you're compelled because of some commitments that you've made, with another family, go ahead and make that happen. So virtually what he's saying is then understand again that I'm giving my opinion on this. I'm not commanding you not to marry, and I'm not commanding you not to give your daughters in marriage. Okay. The next one is for instructions for widows and widowers. Okay. And that's in verses 39 and 40. Okay. So let's take a look there.
Would you like for me to read that, Ryan?
Yeah, sure. Were you raising your hand? I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, it's too bad it doesn't wave. It just sticks up there like a big yellow blob. 39. The wife is bound by the law as long as her husband lives. But if her husband be dead, she is at liberty to be married to whom she will, only in the Lord. But she is happier if she so abide after my judgment. And I think also that I have the Spirit of God.
Okay, now this is a pretty interesting passage. I think the beginning here is pretty understandable. We've already talked about, especially in verse 39 there, where it says a wife is bound to her husband as long as he lives. But if her husband dies, she's free to be married to whom she wishes. Okay, that goes along with what we read in past weeks in Romans chapter 7, verses 1 through 4, right? Where it talks about that particular situation, that this bounding within a marriage, the only thing that breaks that bond, obviously aside from adultery, and the intended break of the bond is death. Okay. And so if your spouse dies, then that bond has been broken, and it frees you to marry someone else. All right. Now the thought here comes into mind is, what does that mean when it says you are free to marry only in the Lord? Okay. All right. What are your thoughts on that?
Where's my hand?
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I've got a translation here at the CEV, and it says that it says that to marry one should be a follower of the Lord.
Okay.
So I mean, if you take it like that, it's saying marrying another Christian. I mean, if you take it literally for what it says there, or what he says
Mm-hmm.
in that particular way it reads.
I have a little note written by that. In my Bible, it says, as the Lord directs.
Okay. And then I've got a footnote that says marry only a fellow Christian. All right. So I want to take both of those because isn't that interesting that, you know, some of the ideas there, even the commentary is different, or the footnotes are different. And I'm not going to tell either one of you that yours is wrong. I want to take a look at both of those. First of all, some do believe, and like I said, even my commentary off to the side says that, but some believe that this refers to Christians. Okay, marry only other Christians or fellow Christians. I want to take a couple of passages and look at it. These are passages that people that believe that will use. Okay, and that's Revelation 14:13 is the first one. So if somebody wants to jump there real quick. And then the second one is 2 Corinthians 5 and verse 17. Okay. Again, Revelation 14:13. And the second one is 2 Corinthians 5:17. And I'm determined, guys, we're going to get done with this study tonight. We're on the last little paragraph of my notes.
I'll take Revelation.
Jeannie said that doesn't mean anything. Okay, I see a hand from Joyce. Which one were you wanting to take, Joyce?
I had looked at the Revelations chapter 14.
Okay, and then did somebody else speak up too? I better not promote this hand raising if I'm not paying attention, huh? All right, so did anybody else raise their hand or interject?
Okay, so Revelations, it's chapter 14, which verses again, Ryan? I'm sorry.
Verse 13.
Okay, that's what I thought. I'm sorry.
Okay.
And I heard a voice from heaven saying, "Write, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on. Yes, says the Spirit, so they may rest from their labors, for their deeds follow with them."
Okay, so in that passage, who is in the Lord referring to? It's referring to followers of Christ, right?
Christians, yeah.
Okay, so that I just wanted to look at that passage because that's just showing that phrase can mean Christians. Okay, that in the Lord can mean that. All right, 2 Corinthians 5:17. And I've got that if nobody else does, but okay. Dave or Angie, either one of y'all.
Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has gone, the new has come.
Okay, so therefore, if anyone is in Christ or in the Lord, he's a new creation. So obviously, once again, that's another passage referring to someone being in the Lord as being a Christian. All right, now others believe this means in keeping with the will of God. Okay, or you could interpret that as if you marry in the Lord, make sure that you marry someone who is scripturally eligible, right? Who is who has lost their spouse or has been scripturally divorced. Okay, so that would be maybe that would be the other option here, and so that's the other belief. Matthew 19, 4 through 9 talks about that. Remember, that's where Jesus says that, if you divorce your spouse for any other reason than adultery, then you've committed adultery, or you make them commit adultery. Okay. And then once again, you have Romans 7, 1 through 4, that is talking about the death of your spouse being the reason that you can remarry. So that would say in the Lord. Now, here's what I'm going to say to kind of cap all of this off. Okay. Can we affirm that it is certainly always better to marry a Christian? Absolutely. Okay. And that's the advice that I would give anyone. Anyone who is a Christian, I think the best thing that you can do is marry a fellow Christian. I think that will alleviate a lot of challenges, a lot of heartache. It doesn't take away every challenge, but it sure does take away and alleviate a lot of challenges. Okay. Now, I'm adding this little nugget too. It's always better to marry a Christian, not a Christian by title, but a Christian by lifestyle. And that's important because, as a youth minister, when I was in youth ministry, I pushed that a whole lot. I would say, date a Christian, marry a Christian, marry a Christian. Well, you know what? I've seen girls that married a Christian. He turned out to be a complete sleazebag. But I also kind of knew the lifestyle of that individual, and I could warn him. I could say, he says he's a Christian, but he's not really living that way. And so they would just take the title and run with it. Well, he's a Christian, and he's not perfect and all that, but they've got to be a Christian in lifestyle. Okay. So nonetheless, maybe my answers here are a cop-out. No matter what the answer is here, first of all, if you marry, if you lose your spouse and you remarry, isn't it important to marry someone else scripturally? Okay. Yes, it is. And is it important to marry someone who is a Christian? Absolutely. So I believe, both of those principles are important. So whatever in the Lord means here exactly, maybe you could apply both of those. Okay. And so that's important. Any other comments on that? Or anything I'm missing there?
I have a comment,
Okay.
comparison, because, we talk about all the different verses we go to when we're studying with somebody about believe, obey, baptize. Maybe that's not in the right order. You have to encompass them together. So kind of what you're saying is the same thing. Mm-hmm. He's encompassing both of those together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe that in the Lord, oftentimes the phrase blanket statement is used negatively. Oh, that's a blanket statement, but sometimes blanket statements are good because it covers the whole, covers everything. And I think that could be the case here. Most definitely. Okay, Kip.
I'm not sure if there's any application of this at all, but in chapter 7, when you look at the passages in there from verses 10 through 14 or so, and the implication there is somebody that obeys the gospel and they're married to somebody that is not a believer. They say it's okay to stay with them if it's okay with them and all that. And I don't know if there's any application or not to that, to somebody that goes ahead and marries, whether it's wise or not, but marries somebody outside of Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
But if they both decide to stay together, you got that thought there, but knowing that it's going to be difficult at times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point to bring up. Some of the swaying there could be that one instance is, you know, these people were married before one of them did become a Christian, so don't split up because of that. But then he might be advising, you know, people that aren't married yet, if you don't have, if that other person isn't a Christian, you know, maybe don't go through it. But again, I don't have a solid answer there. And so, you know, what you're reading, definitely has some application to it. I think that's good.
That is not your supper.
Okay. All right. You guys have any other comments?
Okay, so I'm just, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So just thinking in our own situation right now, just thinking who's talking to, who we're concerned about is the person who's left behind. So what's the best for that person left behind to help her continue on that Christian walk? With a non-Christian or with another Christian that's going to help her get past that grief, going to help her be stronger in the long run, because it'll take some time. So you're going to need that helping hand to lift you up sometime.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Yeah, I think it's no doubt that the best the best option, you know, the thing that every Christian needs is another faithful Christian. Okay, to be a part of their life. Okay, without a doubt. Thank you for that. All right. Guess what, guys? We're finally done with chapter 7. It only took what, a month? A month or so, but no, it's been really good. So next week we're going to get into solving the problem of Christian liberty. Okay, we know that the Christian faith gives us some different liberties that were not had in, you know, under the old law. And so we're going to see what all that entails, the liberty that a Christian has. Okay, so that's what we'll do next week. Okay, and I've got that it is 8:03, and so I always ask one of our guys on Zoom to lead us in prayer. And Dave, I think you're the guinea pig since I haven't seen you on here in a while. So
okay. Before I say a prayer, I do want to make note to find out that I have a brother-in-law. He's older than I am by 4 or 5 years, and he had prostate cancer surgery recently, and they thought they got it all, and now they're saying that it appears they may not have. They don't know, but it shows that it did work its way outside the prostate. So his name is Skip Canisi, so I want to kind of keep him in our prayers too. Are we ready?
We are ready.
Okay, Mighty Father in heaven, Father, we are grateful for this opportunity we had this evening to study your word. We're thankful, Father, for your word and for the direction and guidance that it provides for us. Please be with us throughout the remaining of this week. Guide us, Father, in all what we do, that we look to you always for your guidance and direction in what your will is. We ask for our safety, especially from this virus. And we're so thankful, Father, and through your Son we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right. Now it's time to say goodbye to all of our YouTubers. All right. So if everybody wants to give a wave, good to have you all with us, and we will see you guys on Sunday. So glad that we could all be together. Blessed to have you all